good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil. You turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil. You turn it for good. Turn it for good. I'm gonna see victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Surround me, oh Lord. Surround me, oh Lord. Surround me, oh Lord. Let your presence fill this place. Surround me, oh Lord. Surround me, oh Lord. Surround me, oh Lord. Let your presence fill this place. Surround me, oh Lord. Surround me, oh Lord. Surround me, oh Lord. Let your presence fill this place. Surround me, oh Lord. Surround me, oh Lord. Surround me, oh Lord. Let your presence fill this place. And I will give you all my worship. And I will give you all my praise. 'Cause you alone I long to worship. 'Cause you alone are worthy of my praise. And I will give you all my worship. And I will give you all my praise. 'Cause you alone I long to worship. 'Cause you alone are worthy of my praise. And I will give you all my worship. And I will give you all my praise. 'Cause you alone I long to worship. 'Cause you alone are worthy of praise. I will give you all my worship. And I will give you all my praise. 'Cause you alone I long to worship.
Y'all just lift your hands and sing that with me again. Let's run that verse back one more time.
My praises, and I will give you all my worship. And I will give you all my praise. You alone I long to worship. You alone are worthy of my praise.
Guys, is there anyone else worthy of our praise? Come time after time after time back to the fact that He alone is worthy to be praised, to be honored, to be glorified. Thank you. You guys may be seated. Praise team, thank you so much. Man, I'm humbled by His presence regularly, and I'm humbled by the opportunity and thankful for the opportunity to speak to you guys. As some of you know, Joy's speaking in the youth, so Dave and Kim both really wanted to be able to hear their daughter that they are so proud of. So Dave asked me last week if I would fill in for him, and we've been speaking on angels. He said, run with it. He said, that's great, that's something to go with, unless you know without a doubt God gives you something else, and if so, go with it. So we went to the Dots Gala Friday night. And yeah, I see a big old smile on Amy's face because that was phenomenal. What God is doing in that place is just hard to wrap up in words. The transformations, the lives that are being changed is just, like I said, beyond words for me sometimes. So while we were at the gala, they played something called a poetry. But it's a fantastic young woman named Hosanna. And when I heard it, I thought, good Lord, this isn't for the Dots. This is for the church. This is for every single person that I have ever met, including myself. I remember just sitting there for the 3 or 4 minutes that it's playing going, somebody needs to hear this. Everybody needs to hear this. When I get an opportunity, I'm going to share this. And then that little light goes off in the back of my head. Hey, you, about 3 or 4 days from now, you're speaking. Don't waste this opportunity. So, the title of my message tonight is, Hello, My Name Is. So then I thought, man, we need to hear this. How do I, without just playing the video and saying, flood the altars, how do I really break this down, make this something that's digestible? So I thought, well, let's really break it down to a name. What's sort of the anatomy of a name? So I did what I commonly do, and I went back to Daniel Webster. And a name is something you're referred to as or known by. That alone will preach. So then, but why is that significant? Why does it matter what I'm known by, what I'm referred to? It's an identifier, isn't it? A name. Because if I sit here and I'm wanting to talk to Corey, I can point, Roger, James, he's just going to stare at me. Because he's like, I kind of get the idea you may be talking to me, but that's not my name. That's not what I identify with. That's not who I am. So, we're identified by them. We have a first name. Mine's Micah. Middle name's Joel, for the record. So when I was looking at this, I was like, good gracious, where'd I get these names? And then I was like, it's pretty easy. My parents were studying the minor prophets. I know without a doubt. And they're like, what are we going to name him? Just like, pick a couple out. Let's go with those. We like them. Let's do it. So it's kind of the tough thing with a first name is for the bulk of your life, until you're old enough, if you wanted to do something about it, if you get a bad name, you're kind of stuck with it, right? It's like if you hate your name, sorry. You've got it. It's you. And more than likely, even if you change it, that's going to be you. So your first name, that's who you're commonly known with. In close circles, your last name, though, that's where you come from. Your last name, that tells you who you belong to. Because a lot of people in this building have the same first name. The only people in the same building regularly that have the same in the first last name is if you're a junior or you're a third. You're named after your dad. So your last name, it says a lot about you. You go back to Bible times, and even in some Middle Eastern cultures now, it'll just be someone bar something, or someone been something. That just means so-and-so, son of. You want to use the names of even some very well-known characters. It's, I think of, well, wow, terrible example, Osama bin Laden. That just means Osama, son of Laden. So you understand it's just an identifier, sometimes very tragically. But our last name says a lot about our core group of people. And oddly enough, while I was studying for this sermon, of course, the house is still running crazy. And I remember Alex at one point, because Emma was getting a little disheveled. She was trying to put together some bracelets. And she goes, Emma, you're an Overstreet. You can do this. And I remember puffing that chest up a little bit going, that's right. She's an Overstreet. My name is something to be proud of. It's something that I've stood on. So then I was like, all right, that's great. But there's more to it than that. There really is. But what really? Why are names so important? Because our identity so often gets tied to our name. Think about it this way. A form. You fill out anything. You go to the doctor. You go to school. Anywhere you go, what is the first thing they want to identify you by? First name, last name, middle name, last. Always your name. So I thought, all right, that's great. But that's still not enough to really get people to think, all right, this is something, this is powerful, but why? Well, why is my name so critical? It helps others to contact us. Like I said, if I'm trying to get a hold of Corey, if we're on the phone and he answers it and I say, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so, I'm looking for this guy, he's no early 40s, ruggedly handsome, he may go, that's me, but I'm not sure you're looking for me. And then I say, oh, Corey Nelson. He goes, okay, I'm that guy. I call Chris. I use those same identifiers, and he's going, no, that don't sound like me. And I'm like, Chris Cordell. Oh, yes, that's me. That's my name. Y'all following me? Okay. So think, too, one of the things that's always kind of struck me funny was Samuel. Or I say struck me funny. I thought about it a lot, but then it really hit me when I started preparing for this. He kept hearing his name. His name. God wasn't just speaking to him. He heard Samuel. Well, he runs into Eli. And he's like, I didn't say anything. He hears his name again, Samuel. He called him by name, like he often calls us by name, if we'll listen. And then there again, I thought, all right, so my parents were studying the minor prophets. They named me Micah, Joel. So I heard this story, kind of heartbreaking type story a few years ago. It was these labor and delivery nurses over in Memphis, and they would get these babies that had been abandoned, and they would name them these awful names. I mean, I remember names and just don't say it out loud, but like literally Shethiad was a kid's name. They named him Arangelo, Lamangelo, which if anybody's wondering, that's lemon jello and orange jello. These are these kids' names. And we'll come back to that in just a little bit, because I thought, my gracious, what if that was me and somebody used my personal identifier in such a tragic way? So then I thought, wow, isn't it good that there are only certain people who get the right to name us? Because if we will allow just anybody, because these were just random nurses who thought, nobody cares. Obviously, this kid's abandoned. They're not important. They're not valuable. Let's give them something funny. Let's have fun with this, because the person who would have cared the most about them, the parent, the person who gave up the right to name them, would have cared, would have given them that proper name if they cared enough to do so. So that is why there are only specific people who get the right to name us. We get nicknames. We get all these different ones. And has anybody ever had a nickname? Anybody? Yeah. Was it a good one? Did you like it? Okay. So we'll run across a lot of people in our lives who may give us a nickname, may give us any sort of a name, some sort of an identifier. So I want y'all to go ahead and go with me to Luke chapter 7, verse 39. Because it's a situation where they weren't really using a nickname, but they chose to identify this woman by a name that was not her name, but it was the name they knew her by. It was the name from her past, so to speak. A lot less a name as a title. I'll back up all the way to verse 36, to where she's in a Pharisee's house. In 37, this is the woman, Mary of Bethany, who is washing Jesus' feet with her tears, drying them with her hair, and kissing his feet. At verse 39, it says, Now when the Pharisee which had bidden him, the Pharisee that had invited Jesus into his home, saw it, he spake within himself, saying, This man, if he were a prophet, would have known who and what manner of woman this is that touches him, for she is a sinner. Keep in mind, that is who this woman had been. That is what this woman identified as, so to speak. This is what other people identified this woman as. But if you look at that, he's not saying it out loud, but Jesus sees his heart. He says if he knew, or if he had known who and what manner this woman is, he would not let her be touching him. This is Jesus. He's worthy of coming into my home. Keep in mind, this is a Pharisee. These are the staunch of the high society religious people. And he's like, first of all, I don't want this woman in my house, this sinner in my house. And if he was who he says he is, he wouldn't even let her touch him. I just can't believe this. So keep in mind, the difference between Jesus and this Pharisee is, this Pharisee knew her sin. Jesus was the only person, despite what the Pharisee thought, who actually knew who this woman was. Because no matter what her name was, given name in this earth, he knows her name. He knows everything about her. He knows her identity, not just who she was. But when she walked in that room and began to wash his feet with her hair, he saw her heart. He knew at that moment who she was, no matter what her name had been. He knew what her name would be. That's what he was calling her by without saying a word to her. Jesus knows our name. Many times he may be the only person in the room that knows our name, but it does not change it in one iota. I heard a saying several years ago that I've just quoted over and over and over, and it sounds cliche. But if you think about the fact the Pharisee was listening to the devil's voice, it says, Satan knows your name, but always calls you by your sin. Jesus knows every sin you ever committed. He calls you by your name. That is significant. The reason the name is significant, the reason I went through the whole first page of notes, just kind of lining out your name. I don't want you to forget your given name at birth is important because it identifies you to everybody else. But there is a name that Jesus knows you as, that he identifies you as. Please do not ever forget that name. Jesus knows your sin, but he calls you by your name. He may not call me Micah Overstreet. He may not call you Teresa Rosenthal, but he will call you by your name, and you will know his voice because his sheep know his voice. So, what is your name? Yeah. You know Matt Hill. You would answer to it. You'd recognize it. But, and I actually had this conversation with Chris the other day. One of those other weird things, and in case y'all don't know yet, I'm a bit of an odd duck. I have these conversations with myself in my mind about when my name's written down in the Lamb's Book of Life, is it Micah? Or is it a totally separate name, the name he knows me by? Is it his identifier for me? Or is it just my given name? Was it predestined for me to be named Micah Overstreet and that's it? Sorry, total side note, rabbit trail. But just think about it sometime, because it is important, guys. It is quintessential. Your name will either be written in the Lamb's Book of Life or it will not. So I make light of it, but please understand the severity and the seriousness of this. It is a name that will be written down. So, what are you allowing to identify you? Who are you allowing to name you, and why? Like I said, there was a very, very just touching, powerful video that I watched. If you guys would go ahead and cue it up for me. I'll let you guys watch it and finish up from there because it's just amazing.
John 15:15, he calls me friend. 1 Thessalonians 1:4, he called me chosen. Ephesians 2:10, he calls me his workmanship. He calls me his art. He calls me handmade. He calls me purposed and fashioned for good things. 1 Corinthians 6:19, he calls my body a temple. He calls it the residence of the Holy Spirit. Acts 1:8, he calls me his messenger to the world. Galatians 3:26, he calls me his child. Romans 5:8, he calls me greatly loved. John 8:36, he calls me free, free indeed. 2 Corinthians 5:17, he called me brand new. And it's amazing how different these names are from the names I'm used to listening to. And in my journey to discover who I really am, in my battle to uncover the truths of myself, I've learned something new about my name. And now this is what I am certain of. My name is not the name the world calls me. My name is not the name my past called me. My name is not even the name my own mirror calls me. But my name is the name I answer to. And I can choose today, from this moment forward, to answer to a new name. When I hear lonely, that's not me. When I hear disgusting, that's not me. When I hear unworthy, I don't even look over my shoulder. When I hear broken, they must have confused me. Please look elsewhere. When I hear ugly, abandoned, useless, forgotten, I figure someone just has to remind them. Maybe those were my old names, but they're no longer the names that I respond to. My name is the name I've chosen to spend my days living up to. And if these other voices are not saying the same thing that the truth is, I look in my mirror and I repeat this: they have no right to be speaking to you. When you stop answering to your old names, they stop having power over you. The name that my Father, eternity's author, the world's creator has called me are the only names that I answer to. When I hear friend of God, that's my name. God's workmanship, that's my name. Chosen, that's my name. Loved, wanted, created with a purpose, that's my name. God's temple, that's my name. God's messenger, that's my name. Free, that's my name. Child of God, you must be looking for me. Greatly loved, you must be calling for me. Brand new, that is my name. That is the name that I respond to. The enemy has no power here. Perfect love casts out fear, and perfect love has named me and you. What is your new name? What is stirring up inside of you when you hear these words that his word, that the word has proclaimed? What do you know is the name God is calling you? Maybe it's not the name you grew up with. Maybe it's not the name your old friends associate you with. Maybe it's not the name that your whole life you were used to identifying with. But it's the name you now answer to. So when the enemy tries to get to you, it's the name you introduce yourself with. As for me, my name is forgiven. My name is free. My name is brand new. Love, wanted, child of God, created with a purpose. And it's been a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, like I said, there's something powerful to exactly what she's talking about. You can look in the mirror You can have friends around you. You can have family members. You can have a coworker who will desperately do everything they can to name you. It is not until you go back to the source, to the one place that has named you over and over and over. Like she said, Romans 5:8 says, I am greatly loved. Just resonate on that for 1 second. Greatly loved. John 8:36 says, I am free. My gracious, how many people wish they could be free? 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, I'm brand new. A new creation. Ephesians 2:10 calls me workmanship. Handmade, created for a purpose and for good works. People, we have to get a hold of this. We have spent so many years looking for everyone around us to give us an identity, to tell us what our name is, when it's right here. He told us so many times what our name is. An angel came to Gideon in Judges chapter 6. He did not call him by the coward he was at the time, hiding down in the wine press. He called him a mighty man of valor. Not because he already was, because he was looking to what he knew he could be, to the man that God had already made him to be. Galatians 3:26 says, I am his son. And it does not matter that my last name has been Overstreet and will be for the rest of my life. When I stand before him, it won't be as Jeff Overstreet's son. It will be as his. That means more to me than the name I wear on my shirt when I play basketball. It will always mean more to me. It should mean more to you than the name that person down the road called you. That person that you grew up with called you. That little nagging name in the back of your mind still sits there because you have not understood. That's not me. 1 Thessalonians 1:4 says, I am chosen. Whether anyone else in the world wanted me, whether I was abandoned as a child, whether I was left at the altar, kicked aside by my parents, I was chosen by the creator of the universe. John 15:15, his friend, the guy that slung the stars out and they can still continue to move, I'm his friend. So let me ask you, what name will you answer to? Because it's not just who you know you are. Like I said, I can call Corey 15 different names. He won't answer to them because he knows who he is. When we understand who we are, who God Almighty has called us, we'll stop answering to loser. We will stop answering to underachiever. We'll stop answering to that self-guilt, no good, without a purpose, uncalled. We will stop following in someone else's shadow, and we will say, God, I'll answer to exactly who you have called me. So Blake, if you'll go ahead and cue it up. I want you to be thinking, if you haven't already, what's that one name? What is that one name I have been labeled as, I have been called, that I cannot seem to shake? Go ahead, stand up with me. And if you will, if you want to be courageous, you bring it right up here. You speak it out loud if you have to. But I want you to take that name that is not you, that never was you, that never will be you. I want you to surrender it. And I want you to find one of these names he has called you to replace it with. Because we don't ever just empty something, we replace it. You find that name that says you're an uncertain fool. You leave it. And you find the one that says, I chose you, you are my friend.